All right, our last two examples of our literal equations. Remember, we have a basic equation, and I'm not going to ask you to plug any information in to get a specific variable as far as a value for it, but I am going to ask you to solve for a specific variable. So we have c is equal to 2 times pi times r. Now you should hopefully recognize that formula as the circumference of a circle. I want you to solve for the letter r, okay? The first thing we have to do is know that when it says 2 pi r, that is understood multiplication. 2 times pi times r, the radius. So if I were to rewrite this, just so that visually I understand what I'm doing, what I'm talking about, let's write them in parentheses so that you know each one is considered a separate item, okay, a separate term. I want to get the r by itself. Now, how do I do that? Well, I do the opposite, just like I've been doing the opposite this whole time. So to do the opposite, these are all multiplied together. So the opposite of that would be division. That's right. So we're going to divide. Now, most of the time I would say do one thing at a time, divide by one piece or whatever, move one thing over at a time. But when it's multiplication, visually it makes a lot more sense to go ahead and divide by everything at once, because watch what you can do. 2 divides into 2 once, pi divides into pi once, and that crosses off to be 1, and I'm just left with r. Over here I'm left with c, the circumference, is equal, divided by 2 times pi. So that is my final answer. I solved for r, and I got circumference divided by 2 pi as my final answer. Again, I'm not asking you to find out specific digits, numbers. All I want you to do is move things over and get whatever letter I ask you to by itself, okay? All right, here's my last one. A is equal to 1/2 BH. Area is equal to 1/2 the base times the height. If you don't know what that is the area of a triangle, okay? And I want you to solve for the letter B. If I want you to solve for the letter B, here he is. And I told you that that's multiplied together, so if I were to rewrite it, I would get this 1/2 times B times H. And just like in the previous example, if I want to move stuff over, I can just do division. All right. If I do division, to get the H over to the other side, that's really easy. I just divide by H, okay? And those H's divide out to be 1s. The problem comes in, I have a 1/2. When you do dividing by fractions, what is it? The song. Dividing fractions, easy as pie, flip the second and multiply. When I flip this, that's the reciprocal, isn't it? All right. So when I divide by 1/2, anything divided by itself is 1, so I can divide by 1/2 there. So when I write my 1/2 over here, I want you to understand when you divide by 1/2, what are you really doing? You're multiplying by the reciprocal. So we cannot leave it written this way. I have to multiply by the reciprocal. What is the reciprocal of 1/2? The reciprocal of 1/2, the reciprocal, is 2 over 1. So all I did was take the fraction and flip it over. So when I go to write my final answer for this particular problem, the A is going to stay where he is. I'm not touching him. Okay? The H is going to stay where it is. I'm not touching that one either. What I am touching is the 1/2. The 1/2 has to flip over, do the reciprocal. So if the reciprocal is 2 over 1, 2 is in the numerator spot, 1 is in the denominator spot. Now, do you really need to put 1H? No, you don't. So what you could write is this, 2A divided by H. So that would be B is equal to, the base is equal to 2 times the area divided by the height. That's how we get the answer to this particular problem. All right, we've done a lot in this module. I hope that it helps you understand things, and come back because we're going to cover a lot more information.